Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Modern Triple Team event here in the NRG Series 10K live in Indianapolis. My name is Will Hall, better known on the internet as Will Hall EXP, and I'm now joined by the one and only Mason Clark. I know I just said goodbye to you all, but I was like, I need a bit more modern in my life, so I'm going to be coming back with Mason for a little bit, doing a few more rounds of it. Mason, welcome back in the booth. It seems like it was just yesterday it was me and you in the booth.
Yeah, you mentioned you couldn't get enough of it. I thought 10 rounds of coverage yesterday wasn't enough. Give me another 5 as a treat. So here we are, and I can't wait to take us all the way to the finals with this Modern Team event. Modern is my favorite format by a lot,
Same.
so I cannot wait to see the action. I've been checking in, I've been doing little chores today around the house, trying to be more than just Magic person this weekend. It's hard with all the awesome coverage, but now I get to fully enjoy it. I can't wait.
Is there any decks that you're looking for, particularly anything you want to be seeing this weekend? I know you're a bit of a Scales fan, and we have seen a little bit of that so far on camera.
Yes, I love Scales. I loved Eight Adams match. They really killed it. That was one of the ones I did see in the entirety. I couldn't look away. I love that. I like Yogg. I enjoy the 4-color decks. It's kind of what I'm known for was the Yorion stuff. I like the scam. I actually find the scam matchup to be pretty interesting a lot of the times, as long as it isn't just the grief when you're putting a mulligan. So there's not a lot that I'm not interested in seeing. I think even Tron has pretty interesting games these days. So there's very few decks. Like basically, I don't want to see a Belcher mirror. But if you give me anything besides that, I'm down.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen one of them, and normally I'm on the dark side when I play that matchup. It's very interesting. There's a lot on the line this weekend, though. Remember, so just not only yesterday we managed to crown our winner, or this morning, should I say, we crowned our winner for Jonathan Hobbs. Not sure if you caught that out, but Jonathan was able to take it down with his Rakdos mid-range deck. So that is our 9th player into the Players Championship, but still a load of points on the line in this tournament, right? Especially in team trios, you can potentially elevate 3 players up that leaderboard. So only one weekend away, and we're going to be able to find out what is going on. I said it's kind of like when you watch sports and that final weekend for your team in the league. All the results start coming in. You start working out. Okay, they're going to jump them. They move to that. It's going to be super exciting next month. That is going to be 25th, 26th in Madison, Wisconsin. Maybe you're going to be there. Maybe I'm going to be there. I don't know.
Well,
I'm trying my
I'm
best.
going to be here's the plan. I
Oh,
will be in the booth commentating the matches. I cannot wait to see it. I mean, the Players Championship is the thing that is always the most exciting to me. You see me
mhm.
bring it up on coverage all the time. I love these big storylines. And if you're one of the players in the Players Championship, you might be shaking your head a little bit because Jonathan Hobbs is no slouch, and your field just got a lot tougher and typically is willing to bring either stock great decks or off the wall choices. So when it comes to metagaming, Hobbs really throws a wrench into the things. And so if you're one of those players or one of our 6 at large players, you're maybe shaking your head a little bit.
He was saying this morning to us in the interview that he basically dusted off his deck from 5 months ago and just played it. Didn't make any changes. Went, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
picks it up, brought it, works out really well. That kind of does what it needs to do. Pretty good against Phoenix with my configuration. Yeah, that works. That's and sometimes that happens. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't have time to do all this testing and everything like that. You rely on just being your skill or your matchups and how they line up. We saw yesterday in Pioneer play draw pretty dependent in Modern, not as it's not as much as a big swing of percentage points. I did see something a Twitter article, Twitter sort of a talk discussion between players about the evoke creatures and
Mm-hmm.
how that they believe that is the way to counteract the play draw dependency. They think it's good for the modern format. What you got any opinions on this?
Yeah, I got some good ones with that. And so I think basically what they have, really quickly as we start the match here, the quick
Yeah.
thing is because there's a lot cheaper cards in the deck, you can do more. You don't fall behind because you're able to keep up. So 0 mana spells are a way to sometimes break the play draw discrepancy. Obviously, having turn 1 grief, is going to, if your opponent doesn't have a free spell, is going to exacerbate it even more so. But, that is sort of the nature of all spells. The cheaper they get, the more the play draw is going to matter. But, if your opponent has this equally costed cards, it's going to even out.
So we get to play this awesome game along with everybody at home that we need to work out what these decks are before our coverage team can. I believe that is Merfolk on the right of our list. So a card that okay, it is definitely be Merfolk being played here from Joe. But over on Oliver's side, I believe we saw him earlier on Rhinos build.
Yes, yeah, I think Oliver Tomajko, a big fan of this Rhino deck. Him and Nathan Stoyer and Abe Corrigan, 3 players who, along
Name
with
drop.
Isaac Bullwinkle, actually is the 4th one, are 4 players who really like this Rhinos deck. Those players are all about it. And it is in modern, like the best deck and like the third or fourth best deck are all pretty similar when it comes to power, right? There might be certain areas they're better at than others, but it's not like other formats where, there's the best deck and you're giving up a good amount of percentage points if you play the fifth, sixth best deck. I think you go all the way down to the ninth best deck in modern before you're really giving up a lot of points.
So not a deck we traditionally see. Okay, obviously, I hope someone's called Nikachu right now. Let him know that there is a Merfolk list on camera. He'll be super happy to see that. Not a deck we particularly see too much of. It is probably I want to say the strongest tribal deck currently in modern. Is that correct
Yeah,
estimate? I'm
probably
trying to think if
probably
there's
the
any
best
others.
typal deck they have. I actually, one of the things last year for the NRG Championship, when I was talking to Jesse Robkin and she was preparing, I brought up the idea of playing Merfolk because I think Merfolk actually is a pretty good matchup versus, at least at the time, a lot of the top decks in modern, but it really struggles with the nonsense, right? If you build
Hmm.
Merfolk in certain ways, like we've seen Nikachu do it, where main deck Chalice of the Voids and Subtleties, if you have those sort of things, matchups like Rhinos and Scam get a lot easier because you actually build up these pretty big creatures, and the only way you can actually sort of fall behind is a successfully scammed Fury, which is a pretty hard thing to do, especially with the new Flash Lord that has entered the format. Now, cards like Bowcrusher Giant are going to line up really well against these lords.
Yeah, especially in the early turns, right? Just having a 2/2 body, but if it can fall like a stack of dominoes, if you have one lord and that dies and they all fall down, things like Furies coming down. One card that's kind of pushed this to the front though is Hexcatcher, right? Like that card does a lot in these decks, not only being a lord with flash, but also giving all your Merfolks the ability to sacrifice and counter non-creature spells unless their opponent pays the one. Could be pretty relevant in this matchup.
Yes, that is a huge part of this deck now. And it makes cards like Fury actually a lot more challenging to successfully play, right? Imagine we had the 2 mana up and we had 2 creatures in play, just 2/2/2s, right? Do you put 3 and 1, or do you put 2 and 2 and hope to min max, right? That puts a lot of test on the opponent. And, do you want your 1 for 1? Do you want your 2 for 2? You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot to ask. And, it can be really punishing for players. And against decks like Cascade, it becomes a lot harder to successfully get your Rhinos down as a Charlotte's Agent is being cast.
Yeah, I think Tide Shaper came down, turned the Steam Vents into just an island, leaving a double island and forest, enough to cast the Charlotte's Agent, which is going to cascade into a Crash in Foothills. Is that going to resolve? We do have things normally in these decks like Force Vigors, could be a card.
Yeah, I
So
think actually Joe has the Force Negation in hand. And I'm going to say,
that's
I,
it,
I
Nick.
kind of wish that Joe had gone after the Forest. I understand when to cut off the red source, but this would have turned both Shardless Agent and Violent Outburst as harder draws and maybe force a shock out of there to get your extra points in. But with the Force Negation hand, we had to lose our Sveiloon, but not the end of the world as the Rhinos haven't hit the board.
I'm interested to see also if this is just a straight mono blue Merfolk list. I know a lot of them are kind of splashing red now for Flame of Anor because there's quite a few wizards that happen to be Merfolks.
Yeah, Merfolks secretly are also wizards, but wizards are not secretly Merfolks.
That's some good lore right now. I like it. But
Yeah.
can we advance this board? The fun thing they do kind of lack is drawing cards, though, right? They want to keep the tempo up, kind of apply a lot of lords and small merfolks to the battlefield, have them all grow large, have them all have island walk, turn them all sideways, and get the game done. But unless you get, I suppose, what's the lord called? Slavoon Sky or Sea and Sky. That can help
Mhm.
us draw cards if it comes down.
Yeah, that card is actually just kind of a powerhouse on its own. We've seen mono blue prison decks about a year ago pop up, which are basically this deck, but without the typal synergies and just had more interaction. And they would just play Sveiloon as a creature that attacks and draws cards and has a well statted body. And so in this deck, sometimes you do play games where you just, get a Sveiloon down, you force negation one turn, you hard cast a subtlety the next, you kind of take over the game. And these are kind of like blue prisony decks at times. Now, I don't know exactly Joe's list at this moment, but that isn't Oliver should be keeping in mind. So we do see another Shardless Agent.
Yeah, more rhinos are crashing, have you will. Going to come down here. It comes as we spoke about the hex catcher coming down, giving the Merfolks the ability to sacrifice and carry it unless they pay the extra one, and that is what's going to happen. We're going to sacrifice the Tide Shaper here.
I
Having a little
love
look
this
see.
play by Joe, by the way. Joe made an attack last turn that said I have Hexcatcher. And then Oliver decided I don't really want to lose my Shardless for free. I'll take the 2, maybe the 3, right?
Mhm.
Then Joe didn't flash in the Hexcatcher. So Oliver's like, oh, I'll obviously just jam the Shardless Agent despite having a land in hand.
Ah,
Because why would my opponent ever not push the damage if they had it? Joe got Oliver there. And now, Oliver not in a bad position, 3 cards in hand to Joe's 2, but is in a much worse position than if there had been 2 Rhinos and Saloon coming down.
This is where it's awkward. I don't know. I'd cut my nose off to spite my face here. I think I'd be like, I'll just sandbag the land. Oh no, you got me. I definitely didn't have the land and didn't play it before because I wasn't playing around it. As we see
Mhm.
stomping ground in at the battlefield, that is going to be tapped, of course. OG art. We're getting
Yep.
all the OG arts reprinted, aren't we? In old borders. I'm not
Yeah,
looking
Ravnica
forward to get
Remastered.
buying all my shocklands again, but here we are.
Well, now you have your Pioneer playset and your Modern playset. That's the copium, I
Ah,
believe, when I buy them.
that's why I need to tell my bank account. Got you.
Yeah.
All right, 4 mana. Still got a land drop for the turn if we need to go that way. I think we see an Otawara in hand. Definitely see a Fire and Ice. Might also be a Murktide.
Mhm. No, I think you nailed the hand there. So, Oliver has a lot of decisions on how he wants to play this turn. He can attack with the Shardless Agents, has Fire Ice to kill off the Saloon, can deploy a Murktide as well after doing that. Might want to have Odawara bounce something if he's feeling a little frisky. So I'm really interested to see how Oliver plays out these turns. You gotta remember, Oliver Tomajko is someone who has succeeded at the highest level in multiple card games, is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dragon Duels world player. So, sort of the junior division there when he was a child. But, in his adultness has still done very well at the Pro Tour level when it comes to Magic the Gathering and on other circuits as well. So Oliver is someone that you definitely want to be looking out for when you're playing against them. They don't miss the little things quite often.
What was that title? The Yu-Gi-Oh one?
You get Dragon Duels is what they call their junior division. So basically, if you're 16
Oh,
or under, Oliver at the time was just like 13, I believe. So it's just like they were, I think, separated by default or something like that. Someone told me this. I don't know the exact understanding of it, but
I
you
thought you
know,
had the title of like I'm a Dragon Master in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I went, oh my
uh,
god, that's amazing. That sounds great.
no, no, no.
Might have to pick up another card game just to try and get that title. As you see
hmm
Cavern of Souls coming down, I imagine naming Merfolk. Not the
hmm
matchup that's going to be shining in.
Yes.
3 mana. Ooh, oh, this could go pretty wrong for us here. Obviously, it's going to come in. We get to copy target creature we control. We're going to try and target the Hex Catcher, but this Fire and Ice might have something to say about that.
Yeah, there is Ward 1 thanks to Sveiloon, but luckily for Oliver, yeah, Oliver double checking real quick to make sure it doesn't scale or something silly. These are really important things to do. Oliver is someone who, once again, I've said succeed at the highest level a lot. Still double checking the cards. There's no shame in just double reading to make sure things work out the way you want them to. So Oliver is gonna have to pay the 1 for Ward there, has the mana. Um, and then now
I
Joe's
couldn't
Hex
tell
Catcher is
you
gonna go.
the amount of games of Magic I've lost because I think I know what the creature or the card does, and
Mhm,
then I get blown out by it. I'm like, oh no. But
mhm,
it happens. I think you should always read your opponent's cards, especially if you've got any question of what they can do. And if it is in a foreign language or something like that, that's what we have judges for. Never be
mhm.
scared to call a judge for any sort of questions along those lines. Do you think the Cavern of Souls reprint is going to affect Pioneer?
Yeah, there might be something pretty big there. The Typal decks have a lot of mana when it comes to multicolor. They have Unclaimed Territory and Secluded Courtyard. So those are, 2 lands already. But the third one's pretty big because once you get beyond 2 color decks, you look at 3, 4, 5 colors. There's not a lot of help for that in Modern. So maybe something like Humans, which has a lot of support and a lot of different colors, might get a lot of help. Wizard type stuff, basically typals that are spread across multiple colors and aren't restricted. So like Black, White Vampires, probably not very interested in it, but 5 color humans, very much interested.
I used to love the 5 color humans back
Mm-hmm.
in modern when you used to get my Mantis Riders going. Sign me
Mm-hmm.
up. Sign me up. And just to strip past the turn, because we know that this Murktide's going to be able to get there. 5/5 in the air. It's going to be pretty hard for Merfolk to block and deal with. How are we going to get back into this for Joe? Just to pass the turn, I imagine isn't the way. And this might just be lethal, right? If Otawara, 13, what we got? 5, 11. That's exactsies, I would say. Not with through this Trickster, though. Trickster's going to tap down the Murktide before combat.
Yeah, and this is one of the things where the Merfolk deck needs to get its traction going early so that the opponent's stronger cards as the game scales won't be able to keep up as well. Oliver, while also playing sort of a synergy heavy deck in the form of Rhinos, still has a lot of strong cards on their own, right? Like Bone
Mhm.
Crusher Giants, no slouch. Fury is obviously very good. And yeah, we're going to see this attack, and
Let's scoop
Joe
him
is going
out.
to die there. But that is just something that happens in the nature of these decks. Sometimes you fall behind.
So we're just going to pop back to the booth while we sort out which one we're going to do. I also see there that I think Murktide took down game one against Hardened
Mhm,
Scales. And as surprised to nobody, the Bean deck is still going in game
mhm,
number one. So we're going to set up potentially we can get down to that one. We're going to move, yeah, we
mhm,
are going to move down to the Bean. Let's have a little look, see how that's getting on. It's probably got some crazy board state going on. And
mhm,
yeah, it looks like there's a lot of permanents on the battlefield, namely the One Ring, a Bean, and a couple of Leylands, bindings, and a bunch of land. Looking at these
mhm.
graveyards, it looks like it's been a bit of a go back and forth, but the life total is a bit too high for Nick to be able to really push through that last bits of damage that he's trying to fight through. Do you know
Mhm.
exactly what sort of list this is? Because there's a lot of different beans lists out there, right? There's obviously a news list, there's controls list,
Well,
there's the bean walk list that Reed
mhm,
brought to the
mhm.
Super League. So
Yeah, there's a ton of different lists. I will say that if you couldn't tell by the board layout here from Isaac Bullwinkle, he is a Magic Online grinder and one of the best in the business when it comes to innovating at decks and playing them incredibly well. Isaac has done this multiple times on Magic Online where he's changed up decks to really great success. And you can tell, right? We have one Leyline binding on the bottom of the board, we have one on the top. Clearly, we play a lot of Magic Online, not a lot of paper Magic. But jokes aside, that makes me want to be a little hesitant to comment on what's in there because you know Isaac will do a lot of things that are a little unorthodox at first, but often make a lot of sense when you look back
like
at what
this,
happens.
how about a time walk? Time walk, draw off the bean, take another turn.
Yeah, that's very nice. And
Ooh,
Orcish
bone
Bowmaster
crusher.
now being played, we didn't do it in response to the Omnath. I guess maybe we were trying to get a little tricky there. But that is going to trigger off the bean. Isaac's going to take another damage. My big guess is, the core of this deck is probably pretty similar than all the other lists you've seen. Now, also we have seen people like Aspiring Spike popularize bean lists that have no the One Ring. Jerry Thompson also on his podcast this week talked about how he is anti the One Ring right now in four color. He thinks so. A lot of players are going in different directions. Isaac's staying with the One Ring for now. It's hard to go too wrong. Even if the One Ring is not the card you want to play, it's still really good.
Yeah, still a really good card. We're going to see this Ren 6 come down, ping the Bowmasters, get that out of here. I want to be drawing cards all day long with this deck with my beans, with my One Rings, with my Omnaths. Bunch of land left over. I think I see a
Yeah,
Solitude in hand.
yeah. I think there's two Solitudes in hand, which and I think there's a bean too. So I
Oh
think
my.
Nick is a little bit behind. You were talking last night how something in your career you're trying to work on is calling matches when you think they're done.
Mhm.
And this game won't be done for about 10 minutes, but I would be willing to bet a large amount of money that Isaac Bullwinkle will not make the silly mistakes needed to actually lose this game and let Nick get it. So, if
Well,
production of another match is starting,
I was
we
about to
can
say,
probably
I
swap
think we
away.
should go down to the Murktide Hardened Scales list. And I know you want a bit of Hardened Scales in your life. Let's get down there and have a look at that one. So, and
Yeah.
it's just started, which is great. In game number 2, we do see
Oh,
the Cauldron on the battlefield.
yeah, we have Cauldron and we have an Alpine move from Russell Lee. That's going to name Urza Saga, which will kill it because it is no longer a saga. The chapter rules, it gets really funky. All I need to know is that's basically one mana, blow up the Urza Saga.
Yeah, yeah. I like it. I need you to name a card though, please. You sure you want to name this really good land artifact enchantment that I have? Does
Yeah,
have
small
another land in
misstep
hand
there
though.
from Nick, though. Didn't eat a card at the end of turn. You can't eat cards from your opponent's graveyard with Agatha Thol Cauldron. Sort of a unlicensed host at home situation.
Yeah, comes up. I say it does come up relevant, especially in these decks when they're trying to get Delirium on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Here
Yeah,
comes
just
a
getting over the
Patchwork
Mishra's Bubble.
Automaton.
Yeah, Patrick. This is a really strong creature in this deck. The Ward 2 is actually really hard to interact with. So yeah, we see actually this Walking Ballista get cast for 0. That's going to put a counter on the Patchwork Automaton, and now we can eat it with our Agatha Soul Cauldron and turn all these creatures into Walking Ballista 1 or Hangerback Walker.
This is going to be beautiful. Yeah, I'd eat this. I'd like to turn these into walking blisters. Are they 1/1 still on the other side of the battlefield?
Yes, they are, because there's only 3 cards in the graveyard now. A creature is
Does
going to
this
go, but I think it's double land in the yard, so we're okay. Could have been a problem if we hadn't eaten with Agatha's, but it all works out.
That is beautiful. I'm all here for that. Love to see it. Now, can we rebuild? Maybe something like a Murktide being a big old threat would be the way that we want to go here for Russell. Going to decide though, did pick up a land for the turn.
One thing I love about Modern Will, and this is something that players mentioned a long time ago about Legacy, is that every interaction point really matters. And You have so many choices in all your turns, and there's so many different ways to play your turns. And we just saw it there from Nick. Like, do I want to throw away the Hangerback Walker to kill these things, or do I want to just lose the Patchwork Automaton? How do I want to play this? All these choices matter a lot, and little decisions go a long way in Modern.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the more we get to cover these sort of awesome matchups that have these little intricate details and really see how they play out. We're going to see a lightning bolt in response to this Shadow Spear ward trigger. Yes, I'd like to pay the extra 2. We can.
Oh,
Yep.
do you see it, Will?
I see it. I see it. So we're
Oh.
gonna go. We're gonna blow this up using the modular trigger, putting a counter on here. Then we're gonna eat a creature from the graveyard, putting another counter on top of it, making it a 4/4. Let the lightning bolt resolve 3 damage on the stack. Sure, take that all day long.
We also could have ate the Hangerback Walker and then used the Hangerback Walker's ability to put a counter on.
Oh, that would have been nice as well.
Yeah, this is the thing. So this is like I don't claim to know all the Hardened Scales lines. I've been very much getting into it over these last 2 weeks. But just like I'm not even sure this is a wrong play. This is just another way to play the turn, right? There's just a million choices every single turn with Hardened Scales and a billion different ways to play it, right? This way, Nick gets to push 5 damage. My way, we get to push 1 with a Zabasa on the board. Either way, you're still opening yourself up to lots of plays here. So Unholy Heat is getting cast.
Are you telling me that Soul Cauldron is a good Magic card?
I am.
That's what I like to hear. So I think we're going to shoot for 4 points of damage because remember, it is a walking ballista as well currently. But now we need to find ourselves another threat. Urza Saga is going to go to the graveyard. That is unfortunate.
Luckily, Nick doesn't have a lot of ways to loot, so it's a little bit of a small misstep there, but nothing that's going to cost him too much. Not like it's a Jace French Prodigy that he could discard it too, but I can't help but think about when we didn't eat the Mistress Bauble. What would have happened?
Could have increased this. We're going to see Ponder 2, Scry 2, both going to the bottom. Fresh draw. That is just another land. I think we've got double land counter spell in hand. Looking for a threat. Can I have a little look see at your graveyard?
It's funny, Will. We talked about you can eat your opponent's cards. You do get their creature's activated ability. So in like the Yogg Mirror or Scales versus Yogg, you can eat it, and now you're the Yawgmoth deck. Oh no, we had Nature's Claim.
Oh no. There is a counter spell in hand. Let's be honest, but like there, that's not as this is more of a punish now than we thought it was. But 2 mana. I would like to play this Walking Ballista for 1.
Yeah,
is this good enough to counter spell? Do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to get a counter spell just because Russell is in a spot where the board's empty. Let's just keep it that way for a second. That's also a pretty scary creature. I wonder if life totals are correct because, like you mentioned, the Patchwork Automaton we hadn't played before was a Walking Ballista, so we maybe shot some, but we gained 4 from the claim. So I'm unsure what the actual, situation is. But
I think we got Patchwork on top.
I think we do too.
Obviously, all this would be super crazy if a Hardened Scales was on the battlefield as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Soul Cauldron is so cool, man. Whoever designed that at R&D, hats off to you. That is a really cool card and it's going to make a lot more decks. There it is on the screen for everybody at home if you're not entirely sure what it does. We see it popping up in a lot of different decks. Seeing it in Heliod, we see it in Yawgmoth, we see it here in Scales. I'm really hoping it pops off in Pioneer as well.
Yeah, I imagine it's a matter of when, not if, when it comes to a card like this. It creates whole new archetypes and bolsters archetypes as well. A really strong card. It's hard to imagine anyone could read this card and not be surprised to see it play in the Eternal formats. Just such an obviously strong card.
Right, we're going back and forth, 1-for-1 cards. Who's going to be able to top deck their way out of this bet? I must say it must be the Izzet Phoenix side who's going to be favored in this because they have a lot more ways to draw cards in the deck. Here comes a Walking Ballista on 1. Remember, we've got Cauldron activations if we need to go that route, and we put extra counters on the Walking Ballista. Russell Lee at 12 life. Does have Lightning Bolt in hand, and I think that might be an iteration off the top. That is a good one to get back in this game.
I mean, it's funny. For a long time in Modern, we would talk about how iteration was sort of the card advantage card and why decks part of the reason why decks like 4-Color and Murktide were some of the top dogs in Modern is because they had access to explosive iteration. So when you hit the late game, you got this huge draw to and all this extra selection. But now the One Ring, this is just another kind of tool and not the top dog, which is I can't imagine you telling me that there would be 2 cards printed in 6 months that were going to make this card look absurdly not playable. This would
Yeah.
never have crossed my mind.
It's not going to be the super powerhouse that it is, but here we are. I'm not saying that there's a power creep, but or would you? I'm sure.
No, I don't think it's power creep. I think expressive iteration was probably more of a mistake than anything. Would be my guess.
Yeah. It is a very good card. We're going to see one card go to hand, one to the bottom, and one to exile. That one to exile is a bauble. We can all see there, just pushed to one side. That is what we're going to cast. That's going to give us the ability to look at either our deck or our opponent's top card. We could use it as a scry ability if we want to, because we do have a fetch land on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're in the tank. It's never good when my opponent's in the tank. Like, oh, really? Really? What have you got? What did you draw? But I think we were considering Cauldron and all the different abilities that this could bring. Let's have a look. So, Ball and myself. We got engineered explosives in hand. Lightning bolt targeting the walking ballista. Cauldron activation.
Yeah,
we can eat one of these Darcy's, Dragon Age Channels, put a counter on it. It's 2. And then I believe we're going to shoot you for 2, dropping you down to 10. Now what? Oh, we liked the card on top. Didn't want to fetch. It was a counter spell. It's a good one to draw.
Yeah, counterspell is really good once the game's sort of like you're ahead or at parity, right? Basically, if you're behind, counterspell is typically a card that's lacking. But at parity or ahead, that card really helps shut the door on your opponent and make it so they can't quite get back into the game. You will just hit land patches eventually, especially Nick here, who has not drawn that many lands this game.
I can't help but think that turn that you pointed out, that your line of how to keep the Patchwork Automaton around, if we did that, we would still have 2 creatures, which means there would, with the way that the game is panned out and all the removal going back and forth, there'd still potentially be one more creature on the battlefield, and maybe that could have made the difference. Be interesting, and as you said, so many different lines in Modern, so many it's never like a mistake, so to speak. It's just a different line thinking, I'm going to play to this line or that line. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. It'd be interesting to see if that would have played out here for Nick, as we see Ancient Stirrings off the top. Look at our top 5, put a colors card into our hand.
Yeah, we're really looking for Ursa Saga here for your Nick Day.
Have a little look.
It has a boss thumb to the front.
It's basically, there's a couple of 2-drops in there, right? And a couple of 1-drops. Do we want to be able to follow this turn up with a 1-drop, or do we want to wait till next turn and have a slightly more powerful turn 2 play? Then things are thinking, well, what if they have counter spell? If I do that, I waste my whole turn, then I waste all my second turn. Going back and forth. It is going to be an uphill battle. We see, though, over in table match A, Rhinos and Merfolk leveling up. That means that's 1 game apiece there. Beans has managed to win that game number 1 that we jumped in on and seen. We are here with Russell Lee up 1 game on Izzet Murktide versus Hardened Scales, parted by Nick Day.
Yeah, Nick Day in a bit of an awkward spot here. So I think what's happening is we have Arcbound Ravager and Zabaz in hand. So Zabaz you can play this turn. You can get on board, which is pretty important because you're low on mana. But Ravager, a stronger card than Zabaz on its own. So I think Nick's deciding, can I afford to not do anything this turn versus, I probably got to take the slightly weaker card here in order to actually get my Soul Cauldron going, start building up a threat, and hopefully, start equipping the Shadow Sphere and get to town.
What turn would you say we're on?
My guess is 7, maybe 8.
Got to be up there, right? Still only having 2 land. I suppose we did have 2 as sagas as well.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes the. Is it a wasp? Is it a bee? What would you call
I
this?
believe Zabaz is
wasp.
supposed to be like a
Glimmer
wasp.
wasp.
Yeah. Well, it's the machine's version of a wasp. It's like an AI wasp,
Okay, I like that. I'm all about AI. And it's going to eat a counter spell. Draw step. Think another iteration off the top. That is exactly what I want to see, especially with a Dragon Age Channel on the battlefield. We get the pseudo scry effect. Then we get to look at the top 3. 1 to hand, 1 to the bottom of our library, 1 into exile. We see a Dress Down and then a Holy Heat and an Engineered Explosives. 3 pretty good cards.
Yeah, Dress Down is great. That's a way to kill things like Hangerback Walker, Walking Ballista, or the tokens off Ursa Saga. So that one's, I would imagine, might go to the hand. It looks like we might be taking on Holy Heat instead, just putting an EE. Maybe not thinking we need the Dress Down now. So many things taken care of. Reasonable line to approach the game there. Another thing to keep in mind here, too, is that, Russell is just in such a commanding position. He might just be playing more towards short and wanting to play around less problematic things happening.
All right, Hardened Scales. Into a Nature's Claim, destroy that engineered explosives while there's not 2 mana left up. Getting another 4 life for Russell, putting them up to 13.
Yeah, and Nick's got to make these plays. You're not going to win if you don't kill that engineered explosives. You need Agathas. You need your strong 2-drops. But also a very awkward moment where Russell's like, I got a little bit of breathing room now.
Still got that engineered explosives in hand that was sandbagging.
Yeah, we have so many cards. I find it hard to believe we're going to be able to turn off Delirium. I almost wonder. Yeah, it looks like we have so many instant sorceries we can't shrink a potential Murktide. There might have been a spot where if we had like 4 instants and sorceries, we just go after one type and just be like, okay, make it so Murktide's a little weaker. But yeah, here it looks like we're just going to try our best to maybe one day get them off Delirium.
One day. Something's got to go really bad for that to happen, but we are living off the top of our deck. 2 mana. I would like to play this Walking Blister. Does it resolve?
Yeah, and this is a spot where we talked about Dress Down, right? If we had Dress Down here, we could have played it. That would have essentially countered the Walking Ballista and drawn us a card. But Russell decided to take Unholy Heat. That way you could cover things like Zabaz. Sorry, not Zabaz, like Patchwork Automaton instead.
Mm-hmm. And just passing the turn back. Be interesting to see when we fire off either this Engineer Explosives or this Unholy Heat in hand. Didn't get a good look at what was drawn for the turn.
I think it's a Murktide. We started flipping spells to the front. But I'm not
That's
positive.
a good one. That's a good one. 3 damage coming across. Do we want to do anything with this? Obviously, we can activate Cauldron, potentially putting 2 more counters on this Walking Ballista. But must know your opponent's not been casting many spells. They've probably got some sort of interaction going on over there as the Walking Ballista resolves, so we kind of rule out counter spell.
Yeah, and does look like Russell has the Murktide in hand, has an EE in hand as well, which he can put on, 1, 2, or 0, all valid options on this board state.
Murktide was a draw. Good eyes. Good, sir. So this is where it kind of gets a bit disciplined. Like, do you think you activate the Cauldron end of turn now, and then potentially lose to a remove spell, or are we holding up? Or if we don't do it now, and if they've got it either way, I'm still going to get blown down by it. Is there a discipline involved here, or is it just I'm not winning this matchup unless you don't have it, and I've somehow managed to get back into it?
I think that's what it is. I think for me, it is less about like, can I beat this card? Probably not, right? Like any removal spell is going to probably stop us here. If we had more mana, maybe we could wait to untap and then activate Ballista and then activate Cauldron in response to beat something like a Bolt, but not an Unholy Heat. Long story short, though, Nick can't really afford to play around things on 2 lands here with no pressure and so much pressure from the opponent. We need to just level that thing up, make the Walking Ballista as big as we can, because we probably just have to shoot on the DRC. And yeah that's going to do it. Russell Lee winning this game 2-0.
Nice. 1 game away for that, or 1 match away for their team, and 1 game because you see both teammates are up a game. Let's have a little look, see at the Rhino Merfolk match, see how they're getting on. A lot going on this backfield. Looks like a couple of subtleties, Mutavault getting in for action, and that card at the top, which you don't normally see, but I understand the reason for it now in these matchup, is a Mist Cooler, the 1/1 that we can sacrifice to kind of stop the evoke effects that we see a lot in modern metagame.
Yeah, a lot of ways to sort of cheat in big things, and Mist Caller is a nice little 1-drop. Your deck has so many 2s in the Merfolk deck that getting a powerful 1 is really nice. And like you mentioned, it is a wizard. Now, I am guessing from what we've seen of Joe's match, either we are gotten incredibly unlucky when it comes to drawing our fetch lands, or we're just playing a bunch of islands, a couple of caverns, and some Mutavaults. So
I don't. Does that stop it, Mist Caller?
yeah. Oh yeah, creatures can't enter the battlefield.
No. It says until end of turn, if a non-token creature would enter the battlefield. They're token creatures.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it shouldn't stop that.
I wonder if we can get down to a judge to kind of rewind that a little bit, because I believe that we should have some
I
big
think we
4/4 Rhinos on the battlefield.
Yeah, so I was going to say, typically you see this card against the creativity matchup. That is where it shines its best. But yeah, it doesn't actually stop the non-token things. That is my mistake there as well. And it happens to everyone, right? Like I'm sure Joe thinks the same thing. I'm unsure what will happen. My guess is there might be some weird ruling where Oliver gets to put the Crashing Footfall back in the deck because it's like you chose not to cast it. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do. It does look like the players are getting stopped. Maybe we can jump to Izzet Bullwinkle.
Let's go to the middle before we get an outcome on that one, because Let's
Mhm.
have. Oh, okay. There's a. Okay, yeah. Well, it looks like a bit of a better matchup here. So it looks like we've got two
Yeah.
fables flipped. We've got a orcish bowmaster. We've got a orc.
Korok.
Yeah, about to say an orc token and a Torak. Don't see that too often anymore. We kind of moved away from that when the hammer matchups started falling short and all but I suppose we have a lot more solitudes in the format. This one's pretty good. Remind people what it does if maybe they're not too afraid with
Yeah,
why.
so
Go on.
Torque Dread Cantor is like a white hate card, typically best against these 4-color control decks. It is a 2 and a white for a 2/1 that when it enters the battlefield, you can kick it and give it black, black. And if you do, you him to Torok your opponent, so they discard 2 cards at random. And then anytime you make your opponent discard a card, Torok grows in size. So against these decks, their primary removal spells are Prismatic Ending, Leyline Binding, Solitude. So while there is Furies and typically some Bolts, it dodges most everything. And so it's a card you'll see some players turn to the way to hopefully cheese this bad matchup, there, where the removal can't really hit it, and maybe you just take their 2 best cards.
Yeah, it's black one. I think you had something in your head when you were saying you said double white one, but it is
Yes.
what it is. It's fine.
Yes,
How can
yes.
we move forward? 5 mana, that's the sweet spot for these decks, right? For us,
Yeah,
it's 5 mana. We can hard cast our Solitudes. We can hard cast our Furies. We've got a 1 ring on the battlefield on 2 counters. So we have to do some sort of action at some point, or that will end up killing us in this match. How do we want to move forward?
yeah,
Might
it's gonna
be a lightning bolt in hand, maybe. There's definitely a white bordered card.
yeah, it's interesting because right, lightning bolt when your few answers to Torok Dread Cantor, but also there's this Orcish Bowmasters in the way. So your endurance and your fury do block it for right now. So on the short term, maybe you do want to answer that Bowmaster, and that does seem to be what Bullwinkle is wanting to fight over. So we see that happen. Then we're going to activate the 1 ring, draw 3 cards. That's pretty good. Picked up a Bean, a Leyline Binding, and another white card.
Over on the evoke side, I think that's another fable at the top where the glare's kind of on it slightly.
Mm.
Yeah, it would make sense to me that it's up there, pushed to one side, but it could be anything.
Yeah, I think that might be the Summoning Sick Fable that's lower, and then the Unsummoning Sick one. Obviously, there's no mana up at the moment, but things like Besage, you make it so that it's good to differentiate. Obviously, Bullwinkle will probably say the not Summoning Sick one if he was to be something like that. But
All right, there's the bean count. I feel like yesterday we had a sound for the boats that were coming in. I wonder if we can start making a noise for the
Bing,
bean. What's it? Just bing.
bing, just like like little like ooh, piece of candy, that sort of
Ooh, piece of
situation.
candy. Ooh, piece of
Yeah.
candy. Family Guy references. I love them. Okay, we are activating the 1 ring.
Mm-hmm. All right, so they are fixing the table, the A match real quick. They're just taking a second to figure it all out. No harm, no foul. They're going to fix that, and it's going to be a close game either way. Probably maybe a rewind situation, right? But
That's
let's
why we
see
have
what.
judges.
Yep, judges are great,
Okay,
and Nick
this looks
Roller
like
here might be able to win this one. Will, and kind of the nightmare matchup for this game doesn't have many bad matchups. I would say this is the one matchup that can get out of hand consistently for them, though.
well, this is going to be a good turn, right? Thoughtseize now. I think we've got double Fury in hand, plus 2 Fables on the battlefield. So if we evoke one, double copy it, we can clear the battlefield on the other side and potentially getting a big chunk of damage. And this Thoughtseize is going to let us know if the coast is clear or not.
Mhm.
As Leyline Binding is going to be cast in response, we get to draw a card off the bean. It is a white card, which obviously is pretty good when we've got Solitudes in hand. It is going to target one of these Fables. We're going to activate the Fable to copy another Fable.
Yeah, let's do the
Math
Kiki.
math checks out.
This is a good way to get a bunch of bodies there. We saw this happen in Pioneer a lot yesterday as something to make a bunch of fables and have them all die with your Mayhem Devil. It's a way to ping someone out. But here in Pioneer, here in Modern, just getting you a lot of bodies and can be very strong though with cards like Fury and Grief.
Seen also by the way, big shout out to Nick and those basics. I do love those basics, the old unglued ones. Very sweet. Now, is this Thoughtseize going to resolve? Or do we want to be casting a few more cards like this Solitude? Yep, Solitude is what we're going to cast. Trigger the beam, draw another card. That's a run and 6.
Yeah, I had someone recently ask me, like I understand theoretically why being is strong, but you are giving up a spell to evoke your solitudes or your furies, right? And it's like, well, that's like, you're still going down a spell to get a redraw at something, right? And that is true. Like you might just draw lands. That is not guaranteed that you're gonna draw spells into spells. But what I would say is you're wanting to use that evoke moment as kind of a get out of jail free card, not a default mode, right? If you have multiple beans, maybe that's what's happening. But for the most part, you still want to hard cast these, so it's just upside. And now you basically cycle the second card, which is obviously much stronger than it not having it. As we are going to
And
get a
that
Fury, we're going to copy the
changed.
Furies of Fables and win.
Unfortunately, if you look at the top there, it looks like Oliver managed to take down that
Mm.
that matchup against Merfolk. But we can pass down to Tim. Potentially, maybe they're gonna play game number 3 here for us all on camera. If they do, we'll stay here for a little bit and we'll cover that. If not, we'll end up coming back to the booth.
Yeah.
But okay, looks like we're just gonna interview the winner. So welcome back to the booth. If you're just joining us, where you been? We've been playing loads of Magic this weekend. We had Pioneer yesterday. We've got Modern today. We're in round number 6 currently. Yeah, 5.
5.
5. It's been a long day, Nick. I know
No,
what you
you're
were going
good.
through yesterday. You know, what I mean, it's getting a
Yeah.
long day. Round number 5. So we're gonna queue up getting the winners in the booth so we can have a little interview with them. But it is team trios. That means every team is gonna have 3 players. Those 3 players are going to be playing any modern deck of their choice, as long as it has got legal modern cards in it. And it's not like sometimes you see unified modern where you only get 4 copies between your team. Not in this event. No. You can have burn, burn, burn. You can have infect, infect, infect. God, I wish we could have a triple infect team. It wouldn't do very well, but especially when there's all these Furies we've been seeing around in Bowmasters. But it'd be pretty sweet to say that I registered a triple infect list. Mason, I was asking Julian what deck he'd be bringing this weekend and which teammates he'd be bringing along with him. What deck would you be playing and what teammates would you like to bring with you?
Ooh, that's such a great question. So the deck I bring with me, I'd probably play 4-color. I haven't played much of it recently, but I have been liking. I really liked Doss's sort of Supreme Verdict heavy build of the deck. Might not be what I bring to a team event where players are maybe a bit more incentivized to play better decks, right? Like in an open field tournament, you're kind of like there's a little bit of like, hey, play whatever you want. You're not holding anyone accountable. And this thing, if I play a bad deck, well, I might be letting my homies down. So there's probably a bit of a leaning towards more stockish decks than there would normally be. So I kind of like the idea of this counterspell Supreme Verdict heavy build of the deck that Honorog has. And so something like that would jump out to me, or proper 4-color. But let's talk to Oliver Tomajko,
Yeah,
because
Oliver's
Oliver's
in
the
the
one
booth.
in the here doing it.
Here he is. Hello, Oliver. You're talking to Will and Mason. Congratulations on taking that one down there at the end.
Thank you.
Why did you bring Rhinos this weekend?
I really enjoy this style of play with Rhinos, very much like turn-by-turn blue-based interaction decks. I picked Rhinos. My teammates picked Murktide and the Beanstalk deck because we borrowed all of our cards from one friend, so we had to pick different decks because we didn't have, too much overlap.
Yeah, so about that there, you mentioned we all borrowed from different, so we couldn't overlap. And let's assume card availability wasn't an issue. Do you think y'all would have maybe registered 3 of a singular deck?
It's hard to say. Russell really likes the Murktide deck. It's just his play style. I don't really like it, and I enjoy Rhinos. There's a lot of good Beanstalk decks, but we haven't really done a ton of testing since that started getting really popular, so it's hard to say.
We haven't got access to deck lists, so we don't know the exact 75 that you're playing. Obviously, we've seen a lot of different versions from the Pro Tour playing things like questing beasts, etc. You got anything spicy in your list, or is it pretty stock?
It's pretty stock. I would say nothing too crazy or weird. I'm not playing something like Mutavault. I think it's kind of bad to just slot stuff like that into the deck for random marginal value with the Flame of Anor. But in general, yeah, it's just stock Rhino deck.
Nice. And speaking of stock, there's a lot of conversation going on right now. Tomorrow at the time of this event's happening, we're getting a BNR announcement. We don't know if anything is happening, but I'm curious, what are your thoughts on, modern Pioneer, etc.? Like, are there anything you're happy with there? You're unhappy? Sort of where's your head at, if you had the keys to the castle?
Yeah, I would say there's 2 cards in Modern that just are very unpleasant to play with or against, Bowmaster and Up the Beanstalk. Just 2 mana cards that sometimes you just play it on 2 and it makes the game basically impossible for your opponent or for you, if you're sitting against it. And, in combo with the pitch elementals that I feel like nobody's really a fan of, Beanstalk is probably just too good.
I was actually going to ask you that about the. There's been a bit of discussion recently on Twitter about the Evoke Elementals and how they kind of balance the play draw dependency in Modern. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's like kind of a thin line where it's like having free effects generally is quite good in Magic just for gameplay because it lets you interact with your opponent and makes non-games less of a thing, except in the case of these elementals, it kind of just makes it impossible for some decks to enter the format, and games get decided really early for no reason because of that. You know, whether it's like the game is decided if you have your fairy or you don't, and that kind of decides it. So I'm not a fan of them, and Modern has been pretty stale for the last, year or so.
That means I've got to ask you what would you want banned then? I've got to ask it, right? If you think it's stale, what would you do to mix up the format?
I would unban stuff. Just unban lots of stuff. It's fun, and like, if it doesn't work, ban it again. Like, you can just keep doing it. I don't know.
That's a split and twin cry if I've ever heard one, Mason. You know what I mean? Everybody wants split and twin back. If it would be good or bad, we want it made more importantly for the meme. Now chat's obviously going off saying that as well. So congratulations.
Unbanned Splurge Twin talking in the chat.
They love it. They love it. Oliver, congratulations. Good luck with the team. You know, you're off to a running start right now, 5-0. If you can keep that up, I'm pretty sure you can start seeing yourself in that top 8 battling out to try and walk away with the trophy, the title, and all the money. So hats off. We're going to let you shoot off there as we come back to the booth. And in that one, welcome back to the booth, ladies and gentlemen. Will Hall, Mason, Clark. That is going to be the end of round number 5. Triple Modern, lots more of it to come after this short break. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Stick around. See you shortly.